the midpoint of a side connects the midpoint of a side to the opposite vertex. Alright, so if we draw a triangle here, let's draw any triangle. Doesn't have to be perfect or the same as mine, but kind of one that's big enough that we could draw in the middle of it. Alright, and then let's label that A, B, and C. So to start off with, we need to find a midpoint. Midpoint means exactly in the middle. So let's find the midpoint of AB. So just take your best guess. Where do you think the middle is between your A and your B? Find your middle. Okay, and if you're not exactly sure, that's okay, because we have symbols in math to show our reader that, hey, that's the middle. That's where we would say that this side is the same as that side. Alright, so that's our midpoint, but now the median is going to connect that midpoint to the opposite vertex. And when we say that vertex, we're really looking at one of those angles, A, B, or C. So which one of those would be opposite of this point? A, B, or C? Which one would go through the triangle? C. So that's what we're going to connect, is this to C. And that's a median. Alright, you're going to get a glue in. With your glue in, you're going to want to glue it to one side or the other side, depending on what side of your notes you're taking it on. So I'm going to glue it in on my left side. Not cutting it at all, just gluing it in on the left side. As you glue it in, go ahead and find highlighters. You're going to need 3 highlighters today, 3 colors. You might need to change around as you go. I changed the setting for you. Better? Alright, so glue that in just on the right or the left side. I'm going left side because I like to show my work on the right. Some people, they're opposite of me. They go on the other side because that's the way it makes sense. Especially left-handed people. They go the other way, and that's okay. Alright, as you glue that in, if you can find some highlighters. We're going to use a lot of highlighters today. We're going to use 3 different colors as we work. So you should have 3 different colors in your bins. And then you might just need to pass those around as we work. Okay, so if you want to find those highlighters, if you need another color at your table, let me know. But you should have 3 colors for your highlighters today. You have some? Let's see, one more. And then you can share. One more. Orange. You guys have 3 highlighters so you can share? Just pass it around and share. You can also use colored pencils too. Alright. Okay, here we go. So first off, in this problem here, we have a bunch of medians. So I'm going to zoom in. All right, so median, remember, means we have a midpoint. So if T is a midpoint, what two parts are going to be congruent if T is the midpoint of QR? QT? I am a QT, thanks. What parts are going to be congruent if T is the midpoint? I am a QT. Oh, you're talking about QT. Oh, I thought you were saying I was cute today. No? Thank you. I'm just kidding. All right, we have QT to and then T to R. All right, U is a midpoint, so which two parts will be congruent there? Up, it's the midpoint of PR, so what are the two segments that are broken up? PU. Someone fart? Get it? No? Okay. Miss Morrell. UR. So we'll do two tick marks there showing that these match. All right, and then last we have S is the midpoint, so what two parts are congruent there? PS and SQ. So again, we'll use those three tick marks there to show that those are congruent. So we have a bunch of midpoints there. S is a midpoint, T is a midpoint, U is a midpoint. Where all three of those lines cross, where is the intersection of each of those medians? V. So V is called the centroid. V is the centroid of, and we would say triangle, what is the overall triangle? QPR. Okay, so our new word here today is centroid. We have lots of words that mean centers. There's one we're actually not going to talk about with triangles, and that's the orthocenter. So far we have a circumcenter, incenter, and now we have a centroid. Okay, circumcenter had to do with a circle, because circum means circle. Remember, we drew a circle around the triangle. Yesterday we talked about an incenter, and an incenter, I forgot to show you guys, is actually a circle inside the triangle. But today with centroid, it doesn't have anything to do with circles. A centroid is the center of mass. All right, so if you remember on Monday we cut out those triangles and you tried to figure out the part where to balance them. And it was really hard because I used really old cardboard and the cardboard was probably really bad. And that's probably why it didn't work very well. Okay, but that center of mass would be on that centroid. It's where we could balance that triangle if we wanted to. Okay? And the centroid is the point where all medians intersect. Now, the centroid theorem is what we're going to be using today. And the centroid theorem says that where they intersect, it creates a special relationship in each of those medians. Each median gets broken up in a specific way where they cross. Okay, again, we could take time. Remember, a theorem is something we can prove. So we could take time to prove this. I can tell you, again, I looked it up. It's a very complicated proof. We're not going to do it. That's too much. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're thinking a centroid is a median, and a median connects a midpoint. of a side. So this would be like T. And it would connect it all the way to the opposite vertex, P. Okay, so I'm looking kind of at this one that goes diagonal. Now, as it goes from the midpoint to the vertex, if you look at the centroid, is the centroid closer to the midpoint? Or is centroids closer to vertex? Or is it right in the middle? Not quite in the middle. If you look in between V and T, is V closer to T or is V closer to P? T, yeah. It ends up being closer to the midpoint. So we're going to find about your halfway, go a little bit closer to that midpoint. Okay, and that's our centroid, which in this case was V. All right, what happens is that this ends up being whatever T to V is, our midpoint to centroid, that's an X. That's a certain amount. But then from the centroid to the vertex, it's always double that amount, 2x. So if this first part was 3, then this would be 6, double the amount, 2 times that. If we had 7, this would be 14, and we can use that to find measurements. All right, we're going to move on to this next example here. And in this example, we're going to say Q is the centroid of triangle. What's our big triangle in this one? KJL. All right, we're going to do 3 problems, and what's a little goofy about these 3 problems is they're not necessarily all going to be connected. We're going to connect them back to this picture, but they're going to be like kind of one problem and then another problem and then another problem. I don't know. It's a little goofy. All right, so for problem number 1, if I say QN is 6, I want to know what is QJ, and I want to know what is JN. Okay, so QN is 6, QJ and JN, that's our goal. So first thing I'm going to do is identify where is this, which median am I referring to? And I'm referring to the one that goes from QN is here. So here's QN, and I just want to extend that to go all the way across. So J to N there. This is where we're going to use our highlighters. I'm going to use that to highlight, that way I know when I do this problem, that's the one I'm looking at. I'm going to draw a picture of JN. I'm going to draw it over here and just try to kind of mimic exactly how it looks. So I'm going to go up at that angle. On the right side here, I have N. On the bottom there is J. And Q is somewhere kind of in that middle spot. And again, I'm just going to highlight that just so that when I look back at my notes, I can see that that's the one we were matching. All right, and the reason why we're doing that is just because if we mark it all up on this triangle, there's just going to be so much happening, it's going to be hard to read, so we're just going to show our work off to the side. All right, Q to N is how much? 6. I'm going to throw 6 there. And then our goal is to find out what JQ is and then what JN is. QJ is, and then JN. So what we need to do is we need to look at this part here, this x and 2x, and we need to decide which part is x and which part is 2x. X always goes towards the midpoint. So was J a midpoint or was N a midpoint when I look back up my picture? Is J the midpoint or N the midpoint? J is a midpoint? Q is a centroid. N is the midpoint. We're almost done. All right, so this is going to be our x, is from Q to N, which means this other part is double that x, double that length, because N is our midpoint. So if 6 is x, what's going to be 2x? 12. How did we get that? Yeah, 6 times 2 is 12. So Q to J is 12. And how much is it from J to N? 18. How did we get that? Yeah, 6 plus 12, adding. If you need to write that in there, write that in. If you're like, what the heck, where did they get 18 from? 6 plus 12. If you looked at that and you just knew it was 18, you don't have to write that part. If you want to, just for funsies, you can. Your choice. All right, we have 2 more problems we're going to do. Number 2. I'm going to throw down here kind of further across because we're going to do 2, and then I'm going to do 3 over here. All right, number 2, I know that ML is 36. I need to find out what is MQ and QL. Okay, switching highlighter colors here. So once you have that written down, grab a new highlighter color. All right, this time we need to find our median we're talking about, ML. ML, so we're looking at this one that goes kind of diagonal down to the right. ML. All right, and I'm going to draw that near this one. I'm going to go a little bit lower here, so I'm going to go ML. And Q goes somewhere kind of middle-ish, not quite middle. So I'm just going to highlight that in yellow so that way I know when I look back at my notes, that's where I got that from. It's supposed to be this one up here. Okay, just matching it to the picture. All right, this time, I know all of ML. The whole thing is 36. We still want to label it into our x and our 2x. So we need to decide which side is x and which side is 2x. X always goes towards the midpoint. Remember, midpoint means it's going in the middle of a section. 2x goes towards the vertex. That's kind of how I think of it. 2x, vertex. 2x, vertex. Okay? So where is our x and our 2x going to go? What will go with MQ? X, good, because M is at midpoint. So here's our x. And then QL will be 2x. Now 36 though is the whole thing. It's from M all the way down to L. So how many x's are this whole thing? 3. I have an x and I have 2x, so together that would be 3 x's. And all 3 x's together equal 36. And then it's just an equation we can solve like we do in algebra. But that 3 and the x, they're touching. So touching means that they multiply. How do we undo multiply? Divide. You can use that fraction line, or you can use this division symbol. Anyone our human calculator today? 36 divided by 3? 12? Alright, so is 12 going to be MQ or QL? MQ, because MQ was just X, and X is now just 12. So 12. And how am I going to go from MQ to QL? Times 2. Yeah, so times 2, and 12 times 2 is 24. Amazing. All right, last one, number 3. Oh, that's going to bother me later. That's okay. We'll just pretend it doesn't. All right, number 3, we know QK is 16. I want to find out what is PQ and KP. All right, so last color highlighter, so switch around with people. All right, this time, again, we're going to locate in our triangle where KQ is. KQ or QK is kind of this top part. So now I'm looking at that whole median from all the way across. And that one's like going almost straight up and down. And I'm just redrawing it over here. That way, again, it doesn't get too crowded over here. So I have P to K. Q is kind of in that middle. And I'm just going to highlight it in that same color so that I see that that's where we got it from. All right, you guys are pros at this by now. Just kidding. Maybe you aren't. We've only done it 3 times. 2 times. This is our 3rd time. It's okay not to know something after 2 times. We're going to label QK is 16. And then we want to label that X and the 2X. So which one is going to be my X? PQ or QK? Hearing both QK and QP. Remember, X always goes closest to the midpoint. So when we look back at our triangle, that's really important. Which one is the midpoint, P or K? P. So X has to go next to P. So here's our X, which means that this is 2X. So how would I go from 2X back to X? It's multiply by 2, so it's the opposite of multiply. Divide, yep, so divide by 2. So 16 divided by 2, 8. So QP or PQ is 8. And then we can find the whole thing, KP. We would add those parts together. 8 plus 16. and we get 24.